Good evening, good morning, or good night, or good afternoon. I'm not sure exactly what time it is. But my name is Mark Snyder, and you might remember me when I had shorter hair and I was a lot younger. I used to actually host a show here called Snyder Stoughton. But I'm retired now and just enjoying life. But I was called back to do a special show today because my friend is on it. And when you can host a show with your pal, you can have fun. It's like an hour of fun. And we had some food, we had refreshments from Maxie's Deli, so it actually has been a really fun time so far. So with that, by the way, the timing is not exact here as I'm speaking. On the TV, it's a little bit different. So it's a little confusing to watch that. So you're lucky you're not watching the monitor, because it's a little bit confusing. This is the new kind of newfangled TV. I am not used to this. My last show I did here at SMAC was in April of 2011. So I'm a little bit rusty, and I may need the oil cans, so keep that on standby. My guest today is a guy who was actually a guest on my other program regularly. He was almost a co-host because he was on so much. But he is the veterans agent for the town of Stoughton, and he's really a big monkey muck. I mean, when it comes to Memorial Day, weekend and the Veterans Day weekend, the guy does everything. And there's a Veterans Day weekend coming up, so we're going to tell you about that. Plus, we're going to tell you about all the things that he does for veterans. It's all coming up on this hour, which is amazing. And as if that wasn't already enough to be worth every penny you're spending for this program, we're actually going to have a Gary LaPierre special report on some great events happening. I have some events to tell you about. So this is going to be an incredible hour. And I guess that's it. I was told now that that's it. I can't actually do any more. So we're out of time. But thank you very much for tuning in, and it was a real pleasure. Oh, I have to do the guest? Oh, okay. We do have time left. Mike Pazyra, welcome to the program. Mike, how are you?
Thanks, Mark.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks. I'm glad we have some time left for the show now.
Well, there's a little bit of time. I'm looking at it. There's like 12 minutes left. But it's really it's a fun thing for me to come back and do the show with you on it, because it reminds me of all the great shows we did.
Well, it's why I asked you to be the host to come back. I thought the people would be interested to see you again.
Well, I don't know.
Especially
when they see me, look at me.
Else.
I mean, I don't look the same as I did before when I left. So they're going to go, oh my God, the guy aged like 30 years in only 3.
But it's interesting. It's interesting, and
it is interesting.
And I was thinking the show is going to be more about you anyway. Now at this point,
no, not at all. I mean, it's going to be about veterans, and I'm not a veteran. My dad was, of course, a Marine drill instructor. But
not only your dad, but your uncle was a KIA in World War II.
My uncle was killed when he was 20 years old in World War II.
He has a square in somewhere in Boston.
On Norfolk Street and Blue Hill Avenue.
Yeah. So it goes to show that back in that generation when everybody served, there was a lot of it really felt home with a lot of people. Unlike today, it's different today.
Both my grandfathers were also World War I veterans, World War II veterans as well.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that they're wow.
Back in the day, everybody was a veteran. It seemed World War II, everybody served back then.
That's true. Yeah. It's like in Israel, everybody serves, including the women.
Yes. The worst insult, I was involved with a guy, he was a kid in the early 50s, and the worst insult that you could call somebody in the early 50s was draft dodger. That was the worst thing you could call somebody back then.
Well, I think that even now, there's no draft anymore. But I think I have a lot of respect for people who enter the military service. And in fact, when we look at the Stoughton High School graduation lists and we see who's going to college and who's going, there's been more and more people going into the military. I know a lot of my son's friends are in the military.
Last year we were able to give scholarships to, well, outright grants actually, to 8 kids that enlisted in the military from Stoughton High last year. That was a good number.
That's great.
And these aren't kids that were enlisted because they couldn't find anything else to do. These were intelligent, vibrant kids who had a future in whatever they wanted to do, and they chose the military. It was really quite an honor to present those grants that day.
I mean, I know Tommy Tedesco and John Cody and Jeff Johnston, who's in the he was at West Point. Some great kids in this town that have grown up, and they're military people now, which is kind of cool.
Hey, let me mention before I forget, Leo, who's one of our cameramen here, his son, who enlisted as a private, Dennis McGowan, he was just promoted to full colonel. I mean, it's an accomplishment to become an officer in the United States military, but to reach that rank, a colonel, it's pretty impressive. So
it is, and he's also got 2 master's degrees, and the guy is just an amazing guy. And of course, his brother is Dan McGowan from the Stoughton Police Department.
We have a lot of
one of the upper muggy mugs there, lieutenant.
Yes, he is,
Yes.
and we have a lot of prominent veterans in Stoughton. We really do. Yeah.
So, and of course, you were one of the prominent veterans because you, sir, served in the Vietnam era, right?
Correct, right. I was in from 1973 to 1975 in the United States Marine Corps. Yeah.
One of the things I think is disturbing, and I remember this very much because I was a young guy there, and I was in college during that time. And a lot of the people, when they came back from Vietnam, I had some friends that went to Vietnam, and I have a lot of friends from college that were there. When they came back, they were not welcomed as heroes. Nowadays, you come back from Iraq or from Afghanistan, you're called a hero. Back when you guys were coming back, you were not treated with great respect.
It's completely different now, the way it was. Things started to turn around after the first Gulf War in 1990. The VA started to turn around, the way veterans were treated started to turn around. But up until that point, it really wasn't that good. In fact, I have an ad in the Penny Saver this week that came out this past Wednesday. Today is, what's today, the 7th? It's Thursday the 7th. The Penny Saver that came out yesterday. I have in there, we have people, Vietnam veterans or from that era, that come into my office and they were reluctant because they still felt they wouldn't be well received. I mean, to this day, there's that stigma, internally with the Vietnam vets and those Vietnam era vets. And it's really too bad. But, certainly in my office, they're treated well. And I think overall, all veterans are treated well now. So it was a remarkable turnaround that happened in this country. And, you're right, the veterans coming back now, and what really it reflects positively on is the amount of service-connected disabilities, pensions, because they apply for these awards now, and the VA is much more receptive to these claims. Where they weren't before.
On the Cape, they just had a beautiful ceremony for the Vietnam veterans commemorating the 50th anniversary of them coming back and the end of the war. And I think they had about 75 of them showed up in Hyannis for this great thing for the troops. You are actually going to be saluting the Vietnam veterans as well in the Vietnam War during Veterans Day ceremonies, right?
I'll mention that. Our main ceremonies, the helicopters, if you remember, they left the roof in Saigon in April of 1975. So I think on Memorial Day, we're going to do a lot more about the 40th commemoration of the end of the war. Veterans Day this year, we'll be talking about our general veterans issues. Veterans Day is a day to honor all veterans as opposed to Memorial Day, which is more those who passed away and made the ultimate sacrifice. So we have normal festivities on Veterans Day, but we'll certainly mention that's coming up. But I think on Memorial Day, we're going to get more into that.
Now, we should mention the Veterans Day stuff before we even mention anything else because it's coming up this weekend. Now, by the time some people watch the show, some of the parts may be gone already. But it's good to mention it just in case they see it today or tomorrow or before the thing. Saturday is one of the most fun ceremonies for a whole family. The reflagging of the graves is something that I see kids, especially the scouts, involved in. You have got so many people involved. You give them a speaking role in it. Tell us a little bit about the reflagging and then the ceremony afterwards. I don't know if you're going to be doing it this year or not, but the ceremony behind the building where you burn the flags.
Well, if you look at the Penny Saver this week, and I might have had the date wrong, it's on the 8th. Saturday the 8th is when we're having the reflagging of the graves. That would make today the 6th, I guess, because it's Thursday. But I have in the Penny Saver ad, I have instructions on how to get to the SMAC website, Stoughton TV website, where they recorded the flag burning ceremony and the reflagging of the flags last year. And it's really a remarkable thing. And, you know, we encourage people to bring their children and their grandchildren because it really is a great thing for them to participate in.
Absolutely.
And so if you go to the SMAC website, or it's easier, you can just go to YouTube and look at it too. The instructions are in the penny saver, but you can really get a flavor for what it is. So this show will be taped, you know, before that. It'll be seen after the reflagging. But if you see it before that, you know, really, you know, give some thought to coming with your children, your grandchildren to help in reflagging the graves. Now, as far as the flag burning goes, yeah, we do that ceremony behind the VFW. Now, we're only going to be doing that after Memorial Day. We reflag the graves at the Holy Sepulchre and the Evergreen Cemetery the Saturday before Veterans Day and Memorial Day. So after Memorial Day, that reflag, and then we'll do the flag burning ceremony. But we're not going to do it, you know, in Veterans Day.
I didn't realize that this
Right,
too.
right.
Okay.
Now, Stoughton, by the way, has 9 cemeteries, and we have a Veterans Graves officer, and he reflags. And sometimes Howard Hanson gets involved. Howard Hanson, the town moderator, gets involved. He might reflag some of the graves at the old Pearl Street Cemetery. But our graves officer, he reflags all of the veterans' graves at the other cemeteries. You know, the 2 other bigger ones besides Holy Sepulchre and Evergreen are Dry Pond and Maplewood. And then there's a smattering of smaller ones over town, so he takes care of all of those. So we make sure that all the veterans' graves, we miss some occasionally, and people will call the office, and we'll make every effort to make sure every veteran has a flag.
Now Howard also gets a chance to read the Gettysburg Address.
That's a Memorial Day thing.
Is that Memorial Day? Yeah.
Let me give you the Veterans Day Parade. That kicks off at 10 o'clock sharp from the VFW.
That's on Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, on Veterans Day, right? It's on Veterans Day itself. Memorial Day is on the Memorial Day holiday, which is always on a Monday.
Right.
But the Veterans Day Parade, it's about a 2-hour affair. You know, at 10 o'clock it kicks off from the VFW. It loops down Washington Street, up School Street, back to Town Hall where we have some ceremonies. Then we go back to Faxon Veterans Memorial Park for some ceremonies, and then back to the VFW for collation, or the public is invited for, you know, for a meal and drinks. Memorial Day is a much bigger parade, and we end up at Evergreen Cemetery, and that's where Howard reads the Gettysburg.
Yeah, he takes a poor innocent child and makes them listen to him, and then he presents them with the sheet with the.
We can all be dry sometime when we're speaking, but when Howard's doing the Gettysburg Address, it's great.
He's great. It's a fantastic. I got to tell you, I always tell you this because I write it in the paper all the time, and I continue to, about how wonderful that you do the job that you do. You do it way beyond any veterans officer I've ever seen. I live in a town now that doesn't even have a veterans officer. There's one, like a regional one, that no one even sees. And it's horrid that they don't have the kind of attention that do. Stoughton doesn't realize how lucky they are to have someone full-time that not only does their job, but does even more. You do outreach, and you get in trouble for it sometimes, right?
Let's get back to the compliance issue.
Let's go back to the
veterans
outreach.
officers, that type of thing. It is an issue with the quality of veterans officers across the state. Valor Act 2, which was a piece of legislation just recently signed last year by Governor Patrick, one of the things in that legislation is the certification of veteran service officers. There is going to be training and testing done by the State Division of Licensure so that veterans officers like myself could be certified. You know, you're right, in other towns there are veterans officers and they don't know any more about veteran services than they know how they put a peanut in an M&M. They really have no knowledge. They've been put there for a political reason or whatever.
Yes.
And the veterans in those communities and their widows and dependents aren't being served. And it's less common than it used to be, but it's still relatively common. So this certification, and I'm involved at the state level in helping developing the training for other veterans officers across the state to get them ready for these tests. Because if you fail the test, one of the things that we do, and we can get into this later, we pay out a lot of aid out of our office. It's a state program. The aid is paid out locally, of which 75% comes back. Going forward, if veterans officers aren't certified, if they can't pass the test, or if the communities aren't certified, then that 75% reimbursement won't occur in full to communities. So there's a little bit of teeth in the law to make sure that adequate veteran services are going to occur.
Wow.
And that's something new that was just signed into Valor Act, and we'd been pushing this, and there was a lot of resistance to it, even with veterans officers who, you know, they really didn't do what they were supposed to do. I mean, that happens in all walks of life, but when you're in a field like this, if you're not doing your job, you are hurting people. You know, most of the cases we have in the aid that we give out, they're the widows of veterans. And most of these widows, as you can imagine, they're elderly, and a lot of them are World War II veterans. For whatever reason, women seem to outlive men. And so you have these widows of the World War II veterans with what might have been a good retirement income 20, 30 years ago, but now with inflation it certainly isn't. So we can help them and afford some dignity to their lives. And we cover 100% of their medical costs, so they don't have to be choosing between food and medicine and making those choices and that type of thing. And when those services aren't being provided, when you're not doing the outreach, it hurts people. So we want to get a higher quality of veterans officer statewide. The other issue is there is a seriously declining veterans population. You know, we had talked earlier about everybody served during World War II. The draft ended officially in 1973. That's when the draft ended. In fact, I just saw something scrolling across the TV when I was watching TV with my wife last night, and it said the last draftee in the United States Army just retired. You know, he was drafted in 1972.
Yeah.
So right now in the military, there's not a single draftee serving, because the last draftee and it just sort of struck me. That's how long it's been, you know, since we've had a draft. So the veterans population, when the draft ended, it's been declining, which is a surprise to many people. I think a lot of people think with the recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, you know, Iraq, the war is over, and who knows what's going to happen with ISIS and all the other crises we have. You know, certainly we have troops over there now, and there's still troops in Afghanistan. My understanding, there's still people going to be going over there. But people tend to think, well, the military has increased, but it hasn't. It's been steadily shrinking. And you notice this in the multiple tours that you hear about our troops making. You know, 2 tours, 3 tours, 4 tours. You know, and these servicemen, they endure a lot, and their families endure a lot.
They do.
You know, the wives they leave behind,
Yes.
the parents they leave behind. It's a sacrifice which isn't shared evenly across the country anymore. Right now, only 1% of the citizens of this country serve in the military. And so it's, you know, it's not an evenly shared sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice, it really is. And another statistic, even with all the veterans, there were only 6% of the country are now veterans, 6% of 330 million people. I think in Massachusetts it's a little bit higher. Massachusetts historically has had a few more people percentage-wise serving in the military, which, you know, people tend to think that Massachusetts is, you know, liberal, left-wing, and you sort of associate that with anti-military and not serving. I got to tell you, and I'm not just saying this because I'm the veterans officer here in Massachusetts, the program that we were just talking about, in which we pay out all of this aid, it's the only state in the country that has this program. Massachusetts is truly, I would argue, the best state you know, for veterans benefits. The Secretary of Veteran Services for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Coleman Nee, you know, he says when he sees his counterparts, when they go to Washington, D.C. and they all meet, they're, you know, very envious of what he can do in this state. So it's a good state to be in if you're
and
a
you
veteran.
know, by the way, not just as a local veterans agent, but weren't you the president of the organization?
Well, there's the Massachusetts Veterans Service Organization, right? And I was association. I was the president of that. My term ended last on June 30th. Yeah, so we accomplished a lot during the year. One of it was advocating for the passage of Valor Act 2 with that certification component in it. You know, as I said, there was a lot of resistance within the association, but I think, you know, we were able to convince most of the veterans offices to call their state reps and endorse it. And, you know, it's funny, with the, you know, while I'm talking about reps, you know, the state reps, you know, we have, in no particular order, I'll go with Senator Brian Joyce, and in no order, Representative Cathcart and Representative Galvin. Extremely supportive of veteran services, but the entire state legislature is supportive. You know, I would, you know, when I would talk before the legislators when going in and advocating for legislation, I would always say, when I walk in there for my purposes, I didn't see Democrats or Republicans, I just saw Americans, because it was almost universally we would get support. There's always an outlier here or there, but, you know, with all the conflict within the state legislature with other issues, you know, EBT cards, DET issues, you know, they have a lot of conflict with how they want to proceed with state programs. With veterans issues, they're almost in, I don't want to say lockstep, but really extremely supportive, and you know, we should all be grateful for that. Yeah,
That's a real good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you gave kudos to our state rep and senators.
Well, we have a legislative luncheon that we throw every year to honor our legislators for the support that they give us, and we've been very fortunate. You know, the Speaker of the House, Bob DeLeo, who arguably is the most important official in the government, more so than the Senate President, and more so even than the governor. You can argue about that. When he was newly elected, a veterans officer from the Cape, he and Representative DeLeo and some other veterans, they established this legislative luncheon where the veterans officers and their staff across the state could thank the legislators. Now that was probably decades ago when that started. Now fortunately, Representative DeLeo rose to Speaker of the House. So he runs this legislative luncheon now. I have, actually I brought a few things. Here was, you know, it's very professionally done. This was the 21st annual legislators luncheon that we threw for the, you know, at the State House. This was done on May 19th. Now, it's a funny thing about this. Generally, this happens in January. It was snowed out in January. It was canceled. That had happened 2 or 3 years ago, and they never rescheduled it. So this time, they rescheduled it for May 19th. I was going to be out of state that week, so I couldn't go. Now, I'm the president of the state association, but I've been before the legislature a lot of times, not the full house or the body or anything, but I've been with the veterans reps and that type of things plenty of times. So I told my vice president at the time, I said, take my name off of this, put your own name on, you can make the speech. It'll be good for you to get to know everybody, and they'll see you and they'll associate you. And it worked out very well, you know, for him. Worked out well for the association. There were a lot of people there. We have staff.
Was that when they had the
veterans.
coup and you were removed as president?
It worked out very well. It worked out very well. Yeah. And I got to tell you, the way you become president, it's not one of these things where, you know, a lot of organizations now, it's like they're looking for somebody to be president and, you know, 3 people step back and the person's still standing, he's president.
Exactly.
You know, this is something where people really want to do it, but there's an organized thing, there's chairs that you move up, and people can always try to bump somebody off or something like that.
It's musical chairs.
But as you progress, you know, you learn more and more and more, and you get more and more involved. And it's not like in some organizations where, well, you're really not doing anything. You are doing substantive things, you know, at each step. So when you are president, you're really ready to take those responsibilities. And there's a lot of stuff we did. Just the legislative stuff, you know, knowing about legislative cycles, you know, how legislation works, how it works at the State House, the veterans committees. You know, we have in the State Association people that we pay to represent us at the State House. And it works out with some of the legislation.
So like a lobbying group kind of thing? Or?
It's not really a professional lobbying group, and he doesn't get paid that much money. It's a $900 a year stipend, but, you know, he goes in there, he's well known.
$900 a year?
Yeah,
Wow.
But he's a former Marine. Well, that's typical for veterans officer pay anyway, something like that.
That's a little bit, it's a little less than you make.
A little less, yeah. So there you go. So, but it works out really well. It works out really well.
So you were mentioning earlier about outreach, and I know that, for instance, in this town, at one point there was a certain amount of cases, and you've been working so hard that the caseload has just gone through the roof, which means you're serving a lot of people who, oh, by the way, this is not a freebie for these people. This is people who've earned what they're getting, whether they're the widows of someone who went out there or the people themselves. They earned all this, but a lot of times they don't even know it's available. So you go out and you try to inform the people of what's available.
It's tough. The people that need the help the most, often they're the hardest to reach. It's just you know, it's an irony. It's an irony. You know, the people that need the help, you can't reach them, and sometimes you do reach them, and they still don't have the wherewithal to give you the information we need. But, you know, outreach is very, very important part of the job. It really is. You know, when I started, we had, you know, for the state program that we do, we had, when I took over, I think there were 8 cases that we helped. Now we have over 100 veterans, and most of them are widows, actually, that we help. We have actually the 6th largest budget in the town of Stoughton. A lot of people don't realize that. It's actually the 7th, but you know, Janice Bruce and her enterprising nurses, I don't count them because they basically run their own business out of town hall. By that I mean they're an enterprise account. They can, you know, bill through the Medicare rates what they do. You know, obviously I can't bill for what I do, but if I did, what a lawyer charges, I mean, we'd have a retained earnings account that the town would want to go after, like they tried to go after the nurses' retained earnings account a few years ago. But, you know, you shouldn't take their money. It's like, that's the most important thing. It's earned benefits. This was earned through military service. And if you think the widows and the children and dependents, if you've had, you know, your husband or your spouse or a child serve, you know the stress that happens. And it's not just serving in wartime. The military is can be a dangerous job. When my son, years ago, before 9/11, he was in the Army, and he got out of, he was graduating from Fort Benning. And we went down there. Now, anyone who works in a factory, an industrial area, when you go to the, you know, the big board that has all the employee information, all the statutory employment stuff you have to have. They also usually have something on there, we've gone so many days without an accident. When we went down to Fort Benning, and in the front gate they had, we've gone so many days without a death. Forget about accidents. So even in peacetime, the military can be a dangerous job. And so the families, they endure a lot of this. So it's earned benefits. I always tell people when they come into my office, this isn't the welfare office, which it's not welfare now, it's the Department of Transitional Assistance. But these benefits have been earned, and that's what we tell people.
I want to illustrate this with a story that can be found on the in the archives of SnyderStoughton.com. But I remember the two widows that you represented. I have a picture of you with the two widows who we're trying to get an exemption, and we'll talk about that exemption that's available, the tax exemption. And you went to bat for them against I forgot what her title was.
Assessor.
The assessor, yes, at the time. There's a new one there now. But this assessor did not want to give these people what they earned and what law stated they had to have, and you went up against them and won for those two widows, and it made a huge difference in their lives. Tell us a little bit about that tax exemption and about the specific case that we're talking about.
Well, the law, and this is a relatively recent law, but in the last few years, I don't remember the year, but it states if a veteran dies from either disease or injury incurred while having served in a combat zone, then the surviving spouse is entitled to a full real estate tax exemption.
100%.
Yes.
All real estate tax exemption.
And in Valor Act 2, it made it permanent. Before, it was for 5 years full, and then it was $2,500 thereafter. But Valor Act 2 made it permanent. So everyone watching this knows how much taxes are in the town of Stoughton. And let me get back. The assessor we have now is great, but some inside baseball. If you see him walking up to your driveway, shut the shades, lock the doors. Don't let him in. He's going to see you got granite countertops, and here's another $50. Joe, I'm just kidding. Joe Gibbons is a great guy.
Yeah, he's
and
good.
In fact, we have right now, this is real estate tax exemption 22D is what it's called, and the criteria was what I mentioned before. So we did have some resistance to this a few years ago when we did it with these two widows. Most of the cases we have now, I think we have 8 or 9 widows who are getting this now, and they're all widows, no widowers. And most of it is Agent Orange related. We have one POW from World War II, and he passed away. Well, he's gone. His widow gets the benefit. He died from the residual effects of his treatment as a POW. All the other ones are Agent Orange related. They died from lung cancer or prostate cancer, and we just had one just within the last couple of months. And that's in process right now, and it's going to go through, but Joe Gibbons told me the tax rate has to be set first before they can, it's a technicality, but this thing is going to go through for this widow, and she'll have a full real estate tax exemption. And what it does, in her case specifically, and I'm sure for the others, in her case, she told me this is going to allow her to stay in her home, because the loss of her husband's income, she wouldn't have been able to stay between the taxes and the other expenses that she had, the income that was lost. So it's it's a great thing. In Massachusetts has this. Other states don't have things like this, and it's 100% reimbursable, by the way, by the Commonwealth.
That's 100%.
Yeah. They have to wait a year to get it, so the overlay account has to cover it first, I believe. But it's 100% reimbursable.
And so when we talk about your account, and as far as I know, your budget is the 6th largest in the town. We all think of the fire and the police and the VFW and the DPW.
They have a small budget.
The DPW and the organizations like that. Those are large. Yours is a big one too. But the town doesn't have to actually put. They don't have. They put the money in, but they get a lot of it paid back.
It's the vagaries of public accounting, if you will. I have an MBA in finance, and I was the CFO of a company. And private accounting versus public accounting, it's totally different. I mean, they have in common debits have to equal credits, I guess. But other than that, they just sort of veer off. I would look at it, once you're in the cycle, if we pay out, just to keep the math simple, if we pay out $100,000 and everything's approved and authorized by the state, we get $75,000 back. Right. So it comes back a year from when the benefits are expended. But if you're in a cycle, 1 year you're spending out 100 and 75 comes back. So I would argue de facto we're only spending $25,000 in veterans benefits. But due to public accounting and the rules and how they are, that $75,000 does come back. It goes in the general fund, and from there it goes off, however it goes off to. We do get that money back though. So we have the 6th largest budget, but 75% of the veterans benefits do come back. They do
Yeah, and I remember two instances in Stoughton that weren't veterans friendly. One was an individual on the finance committee who made some disparaging remarks about veterans, and I called him out on it, and he was resigned shortly thereafter. And the other one was a town meeting vote, which I thought should have gone through and didn't. Tell us a little bit about, you can talk about the town meeting one. The guy on the finance committee is really irrelevant, but the finance committee's been pretty good to you, right, overall?
The best thing the finance committee did was we had, I was getting overwhelmed with work. I mean, because, you know, as I got in, with the outreach, the caseload started growing and growing and growing. And by the way, the money we spend that makes this the 6th largest budget in the town, that's only about 30% of the work. My secretary basically handles all that, and she's part-time. I work mostly with the federal cases. You know, we have aid and attendance is big. We have an assisted living facility in town, the Arbors. And it really helps people, aid and attendance. People have probably heard of that. Certainly we have service-connected disabilities, pensions for veterans, getting into the VA healthcare system. So I work mostly with the federal stuff. Certainly I supervise and I'm involved with the other stuff. But the FinCom, one of the things they did do, they allowed me, they voted to give me the funds to hire a part-time secretary. And you know, from what I understand, that was highly unusual, and it was a very generous thing for them to do.
And very critical to you to do the job, because you were doing both jobs. You were doing more than full-time as an executive in that branch, but also doing your secretary work. You were typing the letters and stuff, and it was crazy.
Well, we didn't have a secretary. You know,
exactly,
well, when I first started, there had been a secretary back in the day. There was a full-time veterans officer and a
Right.
full-time secretary.
Right. And they had 8 federal cases at that point. Is that correct?
When I took over, there were 8 federal
Right,
cases. There was an interim, you know,
Yeah.
from when I started.
Right.
There was an interim from when I started, so I don't know what there was before that.
Yeah.
But when I came there were 8 cases, and there were no federal cases when I started. You know, right now we generally always are carrying over 100 federal cases for various things, and we have over 100 cases that we're actually spending money for. You know, so it's a busy office. We always have stuff going on.
Yeah.
We really do. But the town meeting thing, that was a surprise. I brought some articles before town meeting, and they were, you know, they were rejected. That was surprising.
What was
I
one?
thought they were
There
gonna be
was
slimmed
there was
up.
one that was accepted, but what was the one that was rejected that year?
Well, there were a few that rejected. One was if a National Guard or a reservist, you know, was serving overseas in a combat zone, like someone serving in Iraq or Afghanistan. There's a few years ago where we had a lot of kids serving. Then when they came back, you know, for the year they served, if they owned property, they'd be eligible for a full real estate tax exemption for that year. Now that wasn't reimbursable, it was going to be paid for by the town. People were screaming, no. If anyone disputes that, we can go back to the videotape, as Brent Musburger used to say. It was extremely disappointing. But hey, you know, that's what it is.
And by the way, if I remember correctly, there weren't many people that would have taken advantage of that. When you did the presentation, I think you said maybe 10 people at the most.
It was
or
nickel
something?
dime relative to the town budget and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, you got hey, town meeting, finance committee, you know, recommendations. There's a lot of vetting that goes on in these things, and that was the decision that was made by town
Are you
meeting.
bringing anything back to town meeting?
No, I have nothing coming. Well, it's no. As of right now, no, I don't. There's been a couple of specials, and there's another special coming up, but no,
Right,
I'm
there's a
not
special
planning on-
next week, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. But I have that's none of my stuff.
Okay.
No.
So are you planning anything in the future to try to reinstate some of these ideas you had before?
Yeah, I may.
And by the way,
I don't
those ideas were passed in other towns. The same things.
To my knowledge, in every town in which they were presented, they were
Yes,
passed. To my
yes.
knowledge, but you know, I might give it a try again at some point. There were other things too. If you're a disabled veteran and you have a service-connected disability, if you have 100% service-connected disability, you get through the town of Stoughton, you know, through the state, a $1,000 exemption on your real estate tax. If you have less than 100% service-connected disability, you know, 10%, 20%, 30%, and we can get into how those are formed, then you get a $400 tax exemption. Some communities have voted to double those because you have local options that towns can vote on.
Yeah.
So I haven't brought that one forward because that could cost the town some money. You know, we'd have to look, oh, here's what it's going to cost, here's what it's going to be. But those are things that we might bring forward in the future.
I remember people discussing at the time that some of the things might have cost $25,000 or something to the town. And they would say, well, you know, that's a teacher, or that's a firefighter, or that's a policeman, or something like that. So it's always a battle when it comes to those kind of things. Right?
Hey, there's only so much of a piece of the pie. You know, the town gets its revenue from taxes. Taxes can go up 2.5%. You know, the assessor has said, you know, recently property values have gone up. you know, they're gone up. So the tax rate is probably going to come down a little, but it's still going to end up at a net 2.5% increase in the tax rate overall.
Every year.
But then there's growth, you know, so that much money is coming to the town. But basically, it's you know, you have only so much in the pie. And you know, you have you know, a lot of big raises were just given out on the school side. The municipal side gets raises. Some contracts were just settled. Costs go up, expenses. You know, gasoline has come down. That's very helpful, say, to the Council on Aging with all the buses they run, helping our senior citizens. So that's been very helpful over there for their gas budget. You know, maybe they can make some more rides now, that type of thing. But you know, costs, as we all know, tend to go up and up and up. And there is a you know, FinCom, the selectmen, they all get, you know, very much involved in where the money's going to go, how is it going to get distributed, and everybody has different opinions.
Yeah.
Everybody has different.
Now, how long have you been the Veterans Officer here?
It'll be 10 years this April. It'll
Wow.
be 10 years this, yeah.
Time
It's going
flies.
by fast. Yeah. It's a
So
long
now,
time.
is that you get a town pension for that?
Any
Big money?
Yeah, it's big money. I'm gonna, yeah. It's well, actually, if you're a municipal employee, then and you have 30 years, and I believe you get 80% of your
30 years?
Yeah, you got to be in 30.
So you
So
got
I'm not going to get. Yeah, I'm
do
not.
another 20 years?
I don't think I'm going to last that long. You know, I'd be in my 80s by then, so I'm not going to make it that long. But no, there is a pension. When you're 10 years, you accrue a pension. You know, when you're in for just years, the pension's not that much. But I'm going to work a few more years.
Yeah, I think they need to have you there, you know. But
well, like I said, the towns are going to be required to have certified veterans officers. It's not going to be any more where, you know, Joe from the VFW, I sound like you, Joe from the DPW retires, or someone retires, and they, hey, Joe, we got a place for you to sit in.
Yeah.
You know, you can do a job here. You know, those days are going to be gone. You know, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have
bring
to
someone
have
who's gonna
certified
be-
professional
yeah,
people.
exactly.
Just like the engineers in town have to pass tests and be professional, the nurses have to pass tests. It's going to be the same thing statewide for the veterans officers.
let me ask you in terms of politics. Have there been certain town managers that have been more supportive to veterans, selectmen who've been more supportive to veterans? Have there been some that have not been?
Let me just say this, we've had a wide variety of support and non-support from people. Some have been horrifically non-supportive. I'd say overall, though, most are supportive, and right now the environment is very good.
Can we
Right now,
mention some of who've been non-supportive?
Yeah, I don't want to get into that. You know him personally. I told you, and actually most people know. But no, we had some serious issues back in 2007.
You had one selectman that was
2008.
telling you to remove stuff from your window and stuff from your, in terms of.
We've had issues before, as you discussed before, with outreach efforts. The people didn't want outreach efforts to go because they didn't want the town to spend the money. My opinion on that was made well known, and we are at where we are now today.
Yeah,
You know,
because
so-
at the time, and I can understand a little bit from a very limited, narrow vision that this particular selectman and certain people like him would when your budget was much smaller back then, would not want to see this huge, you know, ballooning of your budget. But they had to understand that you were doing your job, and that's the reason why it ballooned. And also, 75% of it comes back to the town.
Well,
So,
I don't think I wouldn't have anticipated back then that when I came in with a budget of maybe, I don't know, $70,000, and now the veterans budget is going to exceed $700,000, or $600,000 rather. There's the veterans benefits that are paid out.
Right.
Even I wouldn't have anticipated that. I mean, the need was there, you know, when we found it.
Absolutely.
But like I said, people don't know. You know, people don't know something is there. They don't know. And like I said, a lot of Vietnam veterans, which is now the largest group of veterans in the country, the Vietnam veterans, and they were treated so poorly, they almost still expect it to be treated poorly. And so they don't search out stuff, or they haven't been doing that. But yeah, we've done a good job at outreach.
So you've done, I know you do stuff in the Penny Saver to kind of remind people of the programs. Even when you're doing your the parades for Veterans Day and Memorial Day and things, you include in there some of the things that you offer to inform the public of what's
Well, it's in the
available.
Penny Saver this week, and you know, we put a full page in, you know, before the Veterans Day Parade and the Memorial Day Parade, and we have that stuff in there.
Yeah.
And we generate a lot of calls.
And-
Most of the stuff comes from word of mouth, though. We have a good relationship with the Stoughton Housing Authority. the visiting nurses, Old Colony, the Council on Aging.
I was going to say, don't you still go to the Council on Aging? You used to go there all the time.
I used to go. It is years ago. I used to go there once a month, I think. But I probably could start doing it. After a while, it was the same old people all the time, and you're preaching to the choir.
Now.
There may be some new people there, right? Yeah, so we could.
Because I know they look forward to. Not only did they want to hear what's going on with veterans, but they like Mike Pazyra. Yeah, that guy came in and he's really nice, and they actually like the company too. They love when the police chief shows up and the fire chief, and they like that. But also, some of them are new and they don't know the benefits that they're, especially the widows.
The widows are important. They really don't know all the time. And you look at the pie where the money goes, and I've said this before. When you look at, I agree. Most of the money should go toward education and the children and what they do, because that's the future. I still have some side private industry contacts, and you have to invest in modern equipment to keep up. You have to do that, and it's the same with your children. You have to educate them, and they have to know what they're doing to have a brighter future. It's extremely important. So that's where most of the money should go. But I always say they stand on the shoulders of those who came before them, and that's the elderly and especially the veterans. And you can't leave them behind. And so it becomes very difficult for those of us more in social services, if you'll define it that way, like Karen Hall, who runs the Council on Aging, with the constraints of what she has for a budget, which is why I said, with the gas prices going lower, maybe she can help even more people because she has more money available, for that now. But, personally, I don't. We have public safety, fire and police. We have public works for the roads and everything else that they do. And so there is a limited pie, but somehow I wish there was more money we could give towards the elderly, our seniors, and particularly our veterans.
Yeah, I mean, and I look at this. I used to do on the finance committee here. I used to be the human services chair, and I used to look at your budget and the Graves budget and all these different things. The Graves budget is very interesting. That's per grave. They estimate how many they're gonna need. And is Mike Bodette still the Graves officer?
Yeah, Mike Bodette does a great job. He's the Graves officer. We have those memorial squares all around town, and he puts up the flags on those. And a few years ago, we voted. There used to be wreaths, but now we have flower sprays that we put on there. It saves the town some money, and I think they look pretty nice. So he does that. Yeah. He helps out with the reflaggings, and if we get a call like from somebody, their husband's grave doesn't have a flag on it, Mike will go out there and take care of it. Yeah, so he does a good job.
The memorial squares around town are fantastic, and I've known a lot of the people who passed away and their families and how much it means to them. When you do those ceremonies, and I'll tell you, do you have one coming up in the?
It's funny. We've had a bunch of applications. We didn't do one last Memorial Day. We're not doing anything on Veterans Day. We had some applications, but the Board of Selectmen put forth criteria in 2005, and we have a Memorial Square Dedication Committee, and we meet, twice a year before Memorial Day and Veterans Day with the applications we get. And we vet these very thoroughly. We take it very serious. And since last in Memorial Day and now in Veterans Day, no one's qualified.
Oh, wow.
So
I got to tell you though, I mean that's good, because it means that the vetting is tough, and we really have to earn being there. But I'll tell you something: the families, when you do these ceremonies, you do such a professional job. You host them. Mike does a great job with the unveilings, and then you have the state reps show up, and the senators, and you have Dave from the sheriff's office. All these people, it becomes a really nice event that a lot of people come to.
It's a nice event. People don't know you can get citations from the State House, from the State Senate, the State Legislature. The town does up nice proclamations, and these are things that we can do to honor people who have performed such community service that they're eligible for a memorial square.
That just brings up another thing, because I was thinking of Cynthia Walsh, who's on the committee. Tell us a little bit about the committee, and who is a part of the committee, and how many things do you get, and what are the qualifications to get one of those squares?
Qualifications to get a square, one is to be, well, first of all, the selectmen can give a square to anybody. They're the street commissioners, so they could always override us, which has never happened since I've been there. The qualifications are, one, to be a veteran, and two, the one that is the sticking point is that you need 20 years of community service. substantive community service for the betterment of Stoughton.
So
and that
church, sports,
correct,
civic.
doesn't include a paid position. Like
Right.
for example, me as the veterans officer, I couldn't get a Memorial Square because I'm performing community service to the veterans officer because I'm getting paid.
Right.
So I wouldn't qualify. And that's the main sticking point. Now, just so you know, if somebody was a KIA, killed in action, I mean, that 20-year requirement could be waived under circumstances.
Yeah, they're 20 years
so
old.
it's not
and
hard,
yeah.
cast in stone.
Right.
If we had a KIA in Stoughton, which knock on wood, we've been very fortunate in this town. With all the wars we've had over the last, since 1990, Stoughton hasn't had a single KIA. We've had some kids wounded, mostly psychologically.
Well,
we had
Vietnam.
a kid from last...
Vietnam, right?
Well, Vietnam, I'm talking about from 1990. From Vietnam, we had, I think it was 9 KIAs from Vietnam.
KIA is killed in action, by the way.
Yeah, killed in action, yeah. We had a kid with traumatic brain injury that we honored last Memorial Day, I believe. So we have had some wounded soldiers, but we've been fortunate no one's been killed in action.
And we had Mr. Monty, who, of course, who taught at the high school. His son was killed in action.
I said earlier, it's quite an accomplishment to be an officer in the military, but to earn the Congressional Medal of Honor, it's an amazing thing. So it really is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I went to Washington, D.C. On a press junket and met 2 congressional winners, really old gentlemen who were, I think they were around 90. But it was just such an amazing thing to meet people who have
Just
done
being
this.
in their presence. Yeah, the prior Secretary of Veterans Services was Tom Kelly, who won the Congressional Medal of Honor in Vietnam. And when I first met him, every time I was around him, I was, a little nervous. He's saying, "Call me Tom," but I'm calling him Sir, and then Frank says, "Call me Tom." When you're around somebody like that, it's like being around, the governor or somebody, who's really accomplished something.
Yeah,
and
even more so.
It's tough to be. It's tough to be. I'm not saying you're intimidated, but you're sort of in awe when you're around somebody.
Well, yeah, I felt like that, they were both very nice people and down-to-earth people. But I mean, all the military folks that accompanied the press people were all, very genuflecting to these people, as I would think they would be.
Well, these are people who, in short periods of time, showed extraordinary courage and character to earn what they did.
It's amazing, and that's why I have so much respect for soldiers. In fact, yesterday, when I was walking around in Sandwich with Harry, the rescue dog, we actually encountered 3 soldiers in their fatigues. And I walked over to them and I just said, "I want to thank you for your service." And they were like, "Oh, thank you." Wow, I mean, I always feel like that.
Well, it's like that now too. Yeah, people say that's pretty common. Thank you for your service and doing that. And if we're at the airport, if I'm flying down with my buddies to South Carolina, we see some veterans, we'll buy them drinks and that type of thing. It's just, there's so few veterans now. There's so few kids who serve in the military. Like I said, 1% of the country. So they deserve all the respect that we can give them.
Mike Pazyra is my guest here. My name is Mark Snyder. I'm a substitute host. They pulled me out from, where was I? When I was near the canal, ready to jump in. And
I called you. I called you. I said, "I need you to host the show."
"Don't jump, please. Can you host the show?" We're going to actually take a break here, and we're going to go to Gary LaPierre, the famous Gary LaPierre, who's actually going to tell us some of the events going on. Then I have a couple of my own, and then we'll continue talking with Mike right after this.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society, yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662, or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum showtimes in Easton. Mondays at 9 p.m., Tuesday at 8 a.m., Wednesdays 3 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. And that too, Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 22. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
And we have some great news on different things here. They're not in the same order, but let me switch around here so I can be in the same order. The 5th annual Nights of Pythias, and that's Pythias, dinner auction will be benefiting the Food Pantry Foundation of Stoughton. It's Saturday, November 22nd, and that's a 6 o'clock dinner, 7 o'clock auction. Admission's $25 a person, and you can call David for information. That's David Kahn at 781-885-0679. And then Sinatra Live. Now, I didn't know about this, but I guess they've actually propped him up. Now, it's a Sinatra impressionist. Saturday, November 29th at the Portuguese National Club at 38 Wyman Street in Stoughton. It's a buffet dinner, $25 a person. Tickets you can call PNC at 344-9890 or Connie at 781-344-7672. I should mention that they're asking people to bring non-perishable items and goods for the care packages for local veterans. So that's the reason why I wanted to mention that. And then we have also the O'Donnell Middle School is doing a shopping day. It's the 8th annual holiday shopping day. This is a great place. I love going there. Have you ever been there for this thing? I don't know if you like shopping or not, but I love shopping. I like to go down there and get crafts and all that stuff. They have all these vendors there selling everything. It's Saturday, November 15th at the middle school. It's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Admission is $1 or 20 box tops. Now, the box tops are that band. They did Cry Me a Baby and The Letter and all that. I don't think that's the same group. But they have vendors, crafters, breakfast and lunch is served, and that's going to be a lot of fun. The OMS is, of course, the O'Donnell Middle School. And the PTSO is the Parent Teachers something or other. So, organization. It's a Parent Teachers Student Organization. That's what it is. So anyway, go to all those things. And again, I am so thrilled to have as my guest Mike Pazyra. Oh yeah, that's not how you pronounce your name. It's Pizzeria, Mike Pizzeria. I believe that's how Roy had it spelled.
I can't believe I asked you to host this show.
Well, I'm really enjoying it, really.
I can see that.
There it is, see? Mike Pazyra, the Stoughton Veterans Agent. You can reach him at 341-1300, extension 9220. Now, are there kind of guidelines besides service and stuff? Are there income guidelines for some of these programs?
Yes, there are. And I'd like to mention how Roy just came in here and said how you're doing a great job.
Well,
thanks,
I thought you were doing a good job. You know, you're doing a good job. And you got the cool jacket and the cool tie. So.
We have the guidelines for the program, just so people know, because like I said, the people that you have to reach are the hardest to reach, and they may not even be watching this. But if you get this message, you can pass it on. If you're the veteran or the widower veteran, and your monthly gross income is $1,945 a month or less, or maybe a little more,
which is gross.
Gross, that's gross.
Yeah, that is gross.
Yeah. And you have, the other component is how much money you have in the bank, which includes stocks, bonds, that type of thing. If you have $3,200 or less and your income is $1,945, call me. If you're the widow of a veteran or a veteran, we can help you a lot. If you're married and you're a veteran and your income is, I just want to make sure I get the right number here, $2,621 a month gross or a little bit more, and you have less than $7,000, call me. One of the benefits of this program is we pay 100% of your medical expenses.
Wow.
That includes dental, eyeglasses, that type of thing. So it really is worth it if you meet that criteria to give me a call.
You mentioned medical. All around the country, there was all this controversy about the VA and all these year-long waits and stuff and people dying waiting. That's not the way it is in Massachusetts, right?
I don't think so. There's been some, there's always going to be isolated things that come up, but the VA healthcare system is really, I think it's very good. I had something resolved for me personally where I got treated better at the VA than my own personal doctor, where the VA, I got something diagnosed. It wasn't anything serious, but I got it resolved through the VA rather than my own private doctor who was affiliated with Beth Israel. So the VA can be good, and people don't realize that a lot of doctors, the doctor is not just like at Beth Israel or at Brigham and Women's. These doctors can bounce around to different facilities, so the VA has some very, very good doctors. Now, there is a means test to get into the VA. The Veterans Administration, the country, actually broke their promise to veterans back in 2003 when they instituted a means test for veterans to get into the VA healthcare system. But if you're having problems with your own insurance and you're a veteran, unfortunately, by the way, it doesn't cover your spouse or your children. But if you're a veteran and you're having problems paying your premiums where you are or you don't have insurance, you should call me and we can see if you're eligible. Now, if you have a service-connected disability, you're automatically enrolled in the VA healthcare system. If you served in country in Vietnam, you're automatically eligible to be in the Veterans Healthcare System. So those are very important facts to know.
So now if they want to contact you, the best way to contact you, I think, is to actually go see you. You're on the 3rd floor of Town Hall. And people can go there, and Mike is very friendly. His door is always open. Now, he's in one corner near the bathroom where his second office is. That's
my private office.
Yeah, your private office. But there's bathrooms near him. If you go in the other corner of Town Hall on 3rd floor, and you walk in the office there by mistake, you'll see a guy hiding in the corner. That's the town manager. So that's the wrong office. So again, the guy answering to Waldo is not the Veterans. I'm just joking, by the way. He's a very good town manager. I'm just joking. Now, so they can visit you in person on the 3rd floor. And that's a good way to do it, I think, because then they can bring in paperwork and things that they need to have with them.
We get all of our stuff done in person, but frankly, we're so busy up there, I prefer someone call and we set up an appointment, because often people come up and they're waiting, or they have to wait, or I have to say I have somebody and I'll be another hour or so. So it's best to call and set up an appointment.
Yeah.
But
now,
we're glad to see everybody.
Now, if folks want to get a hold of me, and they might, I don't know why, but if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can. Do you have a Twitter account, by the way?
Too old. I don't have that.
What do you mean too old?
I don't have that. I don't have it.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at MediaMan. It's at MediaMan 2009, and say hello. Just say, hey, Mark, I saw your show. I was eating and I got very nauseous and everything as I was eating, watching you. Facebook is Snyder's Stoughton, and of course you can go to SnyderStoughton.com for all the breaking news, 24 hours a day. We also have events and stuff that's going on and down, sports, all that kind of stuff. It's all on SnyderStoughton.com, and you can email me at pnpco@aol.com. We have about a minute left. Mike, anything you want to say to the audience? Look right in the camera and talk right to the folks of Stoughton.
Well, we have, we talked about the Veterans Administration. There's 3 parts that I'll just say. There's the VHA, which is the Veterans Health Administration, VBA, the Veterans Benefit Administration. We have the NCA, the National Cemetery Administration. We're Bourne National Cemetery. If anybody has any issues in general terms about veterans benefits, or if they were a veteran and they have any questions, they really should call me, because I've found over the years that people really don't have a good handle on the benefits that they've earned.
781-1300 extension
9220. I thought you were looking at that. Yeah,
no,
that's it. Yeah,
and if they want to decipher all the initials you just gave out, they can also call for that too.
They could call for that.
Because I love when people give out initials. They go, oh, yeah, the NCR and the MCA.
And we're fortunate. We can give out
scholarships.
Thanks
very much for joining us, and hope they ask me back another time, but you never know. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.